Welcome to the safety demonstration of the undergraduate freshman laboratories. At the moment I am sitting in the JANS lab at the Institute of Chemistry Ceylon, which is used as a freshman lab for your general chemistry experiments. Even though you are not physically present in this lab at the moment, watching this video clip will help you to get some preliminary understanding about the safety guidelines we practice inside a laboratory. So for this demonstration, I have Dulshani as a student. Good morning. So one of the bad practices of a freshman lab is carrying the bag inside the lab and keeping it on the floor or on the bench top. So if you keep your bag on the floor, this floor may not be clean and it can have some chemicals in it. So if you keep your bag on the floor, that the chemicals on this floor can be attached to the bag, and later on you are carrying your bag and having it in your chair and taking it to your home and having it in your bed. So you will be contaminating all these areas. So the best practice is avoiding taking your bag inside the lab. We have lockers to store your bag when you come inside the lab. So what we can do is take all the required items inside the lab and keep your bag out. And the next mistake she did was taking the entire pencil case inside the lab. And you have a pocket, 3 pockets in your lab coat. So you need a pen, maybe you need a pencil, you need a ruler, and you can take all the necessary items and as much as possible prevent taking unnecessary stuff inside the lab. Now you can see, now she is placing this pencil case in the bench top, and if you have any acids or any chemicals in this bench top, they will get attached to this pencil case, and later on you are going to put this pencil case back in your bag, and all the chemicals and other stuff will be on your books and lunch box and everywhere. So it is also a bad practice. And then so Dulshani has a long hair, and so when you have a loose hair inside the lab, it is not very safe that this hair can catch fire easily. So we want to prevent loose hair inside the lab. And also she is wearing sleeveless silky materials, and silk is not a good silk is not the ideal material to wear inside the lab, because as we all know that silk can catch fire very easily. So as much as possible try to wear a cotton dress, cotton t-shirt, something like that. And also she's wearing a sleeveless top, and in this case inside the Institute of Chemistry laboratories you will be wearing lab coats, so your hands will be covered up. But as much as possible, if you can wear a short sleeve t-shirt, that will be ideal inside the lab. And also she is wearing open toe shoes inside the lab, and according to Institute of Chemistry guidelines, you are not supposed to wear open toe shoes inside the lab, and you can easily get any chemical spills or any accidents when your toes are open. And you will see a couple of pictures regarding this aspect taken inside this very lab. Number one is Lashani. Now she is a senior analyst in a private organization, and this is one of the acid spills happened when she did her section A inorganic practicals back in 2008, and now after almost 12 years she is still having the scars of that accident. And the next photo you see is a shoe of a teaching assistant after acid spill, and luckily he was wearing a covered shoes, and soon after the acid spill he was able to remove the shoe and prevent any injury. And when you see the condition of the shoe after the acid spill, you can imagine if the person was not wearing a shoe, that the same damage will happen to your leg. Now you see a better practice where she took a lab notebook inside the lab, a calculator if she needs to do any calculation, and a pen. So the bag is outside the lab in a safety locker. And also now you can see the hair is tied up nicely, and now she is wearing a cotton t-shirt, and also she is wearing closed-toe shoes to avoid any injuries in the lab. So now we'll ask Dushani to wear the lab coat. Right, so we talked about the hair, and now the hair is tied up and she is wearing the lab coat. However, now if you are keeping your hair outside the lab coat, again the same risk is there, that when you are walking by, there is a possibility of hair catching fire if the burners are on. So we want to prevent the accidents as much as possible. So if you have a long hair, first you tighten up the hair, and then your hair should be inside your lab coat. Right? So she's wearing the safety eyewear, and you're supposed to wear safety eyewear throughout the experiment. And also, if you are living inside the lab, whether or not you are doing an experiment or not, you are supposed to wear the safety glasses. Now it can be your experiment is over and you have cleaned the glassware and you are just doing a calculation, but still your neighbor might be doing some experiment, and if there is a explosion or spill of chemicals, that your eyes can be still in danger. So even if you are not doing an experiment, you are supposed to wear safety eyewear inside the lab. And one common mistake students do is they are wearing the eyewear not in the eyes. They wear the eyewear like this, or sometimes they wear the eyewear like this, or sometimes they wear the eyewear like this. You have to prevent that happening, and you have to wear your safety eyewear properly. Supposed to be in front of the lab at least 10 minutes prior to the scheduled starting time. When we take students inside the lab, there is a protocol. You have to sign your attendance, you have to take the necessary material and go to your workstations. That will take some time. So if you just come on time, or if you are late to a lab, the system will get delayed. So the labs are designed in a way that your experiment takes the entire time, almost entire time. So don't be late to labs, and if you are late to labs, sometimes your senior lecturer will not allow you to perform the particular experiment. And also, if you come right at time, some time will be wasted to take attendance and provide you any relevant material and to have you in your station. So that is the first consideration. And also, you are not supposed to chew any gums inside the lab, right? So chewing gums are a good adsorbents, and they can absorb a lot of particles in the atmosphere, and inside the lab you can have a lot of chemicals, and they will get attached to the chewing gum, and it will go to your digestive system, and we want to prevent that. So no chewing gums are allowed inside the lab, and also no food is allowed inside the lab. And if you try to eat inside the lab, that is not a good practice. And also do not take your water bottle inside the lab, and especially when you are doing a tense experiment, and if we ask you to perform multiple experiments at the same time, and you will be panicked, and instead of your water bottle you will drink some chemical, and we want to prevent that. And if you are thirsty, let your teaching assistant know, and the water fountain is available outside and your bags are outside. You can wash your hands, go outside, drink some water and come back always. And then if you are wearing contact lenses, we don't have a rule to ban you from wearing a contact lens to a lab. However, there is a risk of getting the contact lens contaminated with chemicals. If there is an accident, if there is a chemical spill to your eye, and if that chemical melts the contact lens, there will be a huge problem. So as much as possible, if you are wearing contact lenses inside the lab, you try to wear spectacles. And for those who wear spectacles, there are specialized spectacles called over spectacles available, and you can use these over spectacles with your magnification glasses on. And also, if you are thinking that okay, I will be doing a chemistry experiment for another 4 years or even more than that, you can go to an optician and you can get a prescribed safety eyewear. So it will cover your entire eye area, but it will have the eye correction on it. And then if you are wearing a lot of cosmetics, the makeups and lipsticks and stuff like that, it is recommended to avoid those things as much as possible. These cosmetics are chemicals, and your lab environment can have a lot of chemicals, and if these chemicals react with your cosmetic materials in adverse way, then your skin can be damaged. So it is advised when you come inside a lab to minimize wearing cosmetics. And also it is your responsibility to prevent any accidents inside the lab. So it is not only your workstation, it is your neighbor's workstation too. If your neighbor has an explosion, then you will be harmed too. So be mindful of your environment, be mindful of what your neighbor does, and if you feel an accident, you can always communicate and prevent it. And when you're talking about your own workstation, then also you have to make sure all the chemicals, burners and your glassware, pay attention to every single detail and try to prevent an accident. And as much as possible, avoid wearing jewelries inside the lab, especially rings, bracelets and things like that. And these rings and bracelets are made of metal, and if you spill some acid on metal, that metals can undergo oxidation or digestion. And so in case of severe injury, the first aid team will have to take an extra effort to remove your jewelries from your body. So as much as possible, try to prevent wearing jewelries inside the lab. Before coming into the laboratory, you will have to sign a few safety agreements. Number one is this safety guidelines. I have discussed most of these guidelines, and you will have to put your initials to each guideline, stating that you have read and understood these guidelines. So if some accident happens because you are careless, we will not be responsible for that. And in addition, there is another safety agreement you have signed, which is called the Guideline for Temporary Disabled or Pregnant Students in the Chemistry Labs, which means if you are pregnant or if you are temporarily disabled, like if you are having a severe wheezing, asthma, something like that, it is your responsibility to talk to your doctor and get appropriate guidelines. If you come to lab, we will allow you to do such experiment, but you will be performing these experiments inside the lab at your own risk. We will not be responsible for your temporary disabled status or your pregnancies. So we are conducting undergraduate teaching labs in two locations, the Ramakrishna lab and the Janis lab, and each labs have their safety equipments placed, and each lab has multiple exit points, multiple doors, and you need to know the exit points and where your safety equipment are located. Now I am sitting in the Ramakrishna lab at the moment, and this is my safety shower, and if you spill any toxic chemical into your skin, any corrosive chemical, and if you are feeling like okay, this chemical is burning your skin, and if you catch fire, then quickly come here and pull this lever, and this will give you a large amount of water per minute. Therefore any accident can be prevented if you act fast and operate this safety shower. However, I recommend not to pull this safety shower unnecessarily, but it will flood the entire floor, and if you get a small amount of 0.01 sodium hydroxide in your finger, there is no need to pull this safety shower. And if you get any chemical spill in your eye, quickly come here. You don't need to talk to your teaching assistant or anyone. It will take some time. Quickly come to the safety eye wash and operate the safety eye wash. As you can see, you can have your eyes in here and let water rinse the contaminated area for a few minutes. So in both laboratories, new lab and old lab, you should be knowing, you're supposed to know where these safety showers, eye washers are located. So you have the fire hose in here. In case of the building is catching fire, this hose will be useful, and the key for this locker is in here, covered by a glass. So in the case of emergency, we have to break this glass cover, take the key, open this fire hose and apply water. So these are fire extinguishers, and you will be having an assignment of different classes of fire extinguishers. Inside the labs we can have different types of fires, and the different types of fire extinguishers are used for different types of fires. For example, if you use if you have an oil spill and if oil is catching fire, and if you use water as a fire extinguisher material, that water can carry the oil to further locations and it can enhance the fire. So it is very important to select the appropriate fire extinguisher. That you cannot do it when the building is catching fire. So you have to have a proper understanding of these fire extinguishers before walking inside the lab. So for example, this fire extinguisher right here is for class A, B and C. I am not going to explain these classes now. You will have an assignment on that. So this is basically a dry chemical powdered fire extinguisher. Basically you have a chemical powder, and when you apply that chemical powder into a surface catching fire, that powder will cover the surface, therefore you can extinguish the fire. And these are carbon dioxide fire extinguishers. We know that carbon dioxide is a good fire extinguisher material, and this is a water based fire extinguisher. So based on different fires that can occur inside the lab, there are different fire extinguishers. So number one, you have to know where these fire extinguishers are, and then you have to know how to operate this kind of fire extinguisher. I'm sure we will be having a fire training for you in future. So this is a fire blanket, where if any surface is catching fire, you can pull this blanket and you can cover the surface catching fire. And this fire blanket is made of fire resistant material, and when you cover it up, it prevents oxygen air coming and further spreading the fire. So due to lack of oxygen, the fire will be extinguished. Also, the laboratory is equipped with fire alarms. In case of a fire, the alarm will ring, so you know it's a fire. So it doesn't matter that you may be performing the last part of a long experiment, or it can be a very important experiment for you, but remember, your life is more important than any experiment. So if you hear the noise of a fire alarm, you are supposed to go out, and we will show you the fire assembly point. So in case of a fire, or when the fire alarm is ringing, you are supposed to stop all your work and immediately evacuate from the lab and stay at the fire assembly point. So you are supposed to bring a lab notebook inside the lab. That is not your lab record book. That is to record any readings or any other important factors, times in your experiment. That book can be just an exercise book, 120 pages or 80 pages, and avoid bringing a lecture notebook and to record the readings from the back of the book, and also avoid all diaries, avoid the ring-binded books where you can easily tear off pages from it, and number the pages from 1 to end. And in any experiment, you have to write the title of the experiment, date, and the starting time maybe. And if you are performing a titration, you can record the initial titration reading, and if you are making a solution, okay, from what bottle you took the chemical, and if you are weighing something, if you are using the balance, you have to take your book to the balance, and when you perform any weighing measurement, in there you can record the accurate weight you measured. And so the rough work book will be a complete record of the entire experiment you have performed, and later on for your calculations, that recordings will be extremely important. So we are trying to give you the correct practices in these labs, because when you are performing your undergraduate research project, you will be performing a lot of experiments. In that case, a proper lab notebook will help you to have your data in an organized way. In certain experiments, you will be required to wear gloves to perform a particular set of experiments. And before wearing gloves, the length of your sleeve is extremely important. Now in this case, the sleeve length is about right. And if your sleeve length is too lengthy, that I recommend you to adjust the sleeve length, because you will be wearing the lab coat for about 4 years. And temporarily, if your sleeve is too long, then you can fold it up. So now we will see how to wear gloves, and these are disposable polymeric gloves, nitrile gloves, and I am going to wear the gloves. And when you are wearing the gloves, one important aspect is make sure your hand is clean. If your hand is already contaminated with chemicals, wearing gloves has no point. And also, when you wear gloves, you will be wearing gloves to prevent any contact of chemicals to your skin. However, now if you want to carry your sample to a different lab, different floor, and if you still wear your gloves when you are going outside the lab, then you will be touching the railings and the doorknobs and everything with the gloves on. So you will be spreading the chemicals to those surfaces, and the next student will come after theory class, and he will touch the railings and doorknobs and all, and the chemicals will get into that student's hand. So you want to prevent it. Inside the lab, you have to be unselfish. So when you go outside the lab, try to remove your gloves, and with the gloves on, do not touch fridge handles, doorknobs and railings surfaces like that, right? Now in that case, if you are required to go out and centrifuge your samples, then sometimes maybe you have to wear one glove where you have to touch the chemical with that hand, and to doorknobs you will be using your free hand. Now to remove the gloves after the experiment, there's a specific technique. Now I'm going to remove the gloves. Now assume that I have done an experiment and my gloves are now contaminated with chemicals. Now to remove the first glove, now what we have to do in here is to prevent the glove touching your skin. Then there's no point of wearing the glove and performing the experiment. So in this case, to remove the first glove, like this, you are touching the glove from the outside like this, right? So my glove is touching the other glove from the outside, and the finger will not touch the skin. And after that, you can remove the first glove. And now my left hand is free. And now the left hand, I can insert from inside of the glove. So I'm not touching my free hand in the glove like this. So insert your free finger inside the glove and remove the second glove. So without contaminating or without touching the surface, outer surface of the glove, I have removed both gloves. Again, the same rule applies for your lab coats also. Now you are wearing the lab coat to prevent any contact of chemicals to your skin or clothes. And after the lab, if you go out, go to canteen and sit down on a chair with the lab coat on, and you will be contaminating those chairs and those surfaces. What is in your lab coat will now be in the chair of a canteen, and after a few minutes different students will come and sit down, and these chemicals will go into their clothes. So you have to be unselfish inside the lab, think about other students. So when you go outside the lab, try to remove the lab coat. And again, when you are using a lab coat, have another polythene bag to have it in. So do not just put it in your backpack, then all the chemicals will be on your lunchbox, books, calculators and everywhere. So do not just put your lab coat inside your backpack. And when you are washing your lab coats, do not wash lab coats with other clothes. And if your mother or father is doing that job for you, specifically instruct, do not wash your lab coat with other clothes, especially if you are using a washing machine. And I witnessed a situation a few years ago where one student was performing experiments, and the entire family, mother, father and sister, got a rash, and they did not know the cause of this disease. And later on, when we find out, mother of that student has put all the clothes with the lab coat on, and lab coat had some skin irritant chemicals in it, and when you mix all the clothes together, everybody got that disease.